Last week on the 18th of November 2022, Uganda lost a political icon, Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere. The former President General of the Democratic Party, who passed on at 90 years at his home in Rubaga, has left a legacy. The former two-time presidential candidate in 1980 and in 1996 is remembered for his strong belief in non-violent means to power. As a strong believer in political pluralism, he served in President Museveni's broad-based government that came to power through the gun in 1986. He held several ministerial positions from 1986 to 1995 until he fell out with Museveni due to ideological differences. Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere was the last kind of opposition political leaders who believe in a united opposition and are civil in opposing ruling governments.
Extremely important that we revisit the constitutional and legal framework to ensure that democracy under multi-party dispensation is to be embraced wholeheartedly by all institutions in the government. Ensure that the body or the authority which oversees, which controls funding, is totally independent and its integrity is beyond question.
He was the first politician to advocate for regulating the use of money in electoral politics at a time when nobody cared about money in politics.
For the opposition parties to freely access money, even from their own members, let alone from those who are better off, say in business, but depend very much on working harmoniously with the government at the time.
Money has been used in favor of the ruling party. Money has been used in favor of the ruling party.
The fallen political giant advocated for a proportional representation that recognizes and rewards political parties' representation in parliament according to the number of votes a political party has garnered in an election. Until he breathed his last, he always tried to unite the opposition political parties in Uganda. Today, on Acfim Talks, we dedicate this episode to celebrate Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, a politician of a rare kind and the last of his generation.
Welcome back from the break. You're still watching Acfim Talks. We are celebrating the oracle of Uganda's multi-party politics, the late Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere. And with me, I have Henry Kasacha and also I have Henry Muguzi. Both of them are democracy experts. They have personally had experiences with this gentleman, the late, whom we are discussing. And we are trying to reflect on the legacy he has left behind. You can be part of this conversation. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can send in your questions. You can also your comments, whatever it is, as we celebrate the icon. And I was reading here something interesting that this gentleman was unique to the sense that in 2001, he supported Dr. Kizza Besigye in his presidential bid, even when he belonged to DP. In 2016, he supported Mama Mbabazi. And also in 2021, he supported Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. He shows you a man who believed in rallying behind another person, even if that person was not necessarily coming from the Democratic Party. And remember, he rallies behind National Unity Platform when DP had a candidate running as a president. Quite interesting. But let me pick my comment from there, and probably I'll bring in Kasacha here to throw your thoughts. Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere believed in a united opposition, and everybody does actually allude to the fact that I think it's a value he did espouse putting country first. He died before seeing this dream come true. And my question is, why is it so difficult for the opposition to come together? What is the real problem here?
Well, thank you very much. I think that the opposition to come together is a political process, and it's a political dialogue. And political dialogue has never been a very easy process, particularly if it is not well facilitated. Because to some people, unless the process is facilitated well, you will not be able to get anywhere. So challenge we have had in the country is that we have had processes that have been united on the goal to get power to go in government, but may not be united in terms of sharing the vision for this country, the long-term vision. So why it is so difficult is that the challenges have been with the process and how the process has been facilitated. A political dialogue takes a lot of time, and it requires full commitment. And to have full commitment would require a strong value system. Now, one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment is that many of our politicians, particularly those who proclaim or want to pursue dialogue, do not believe in these methods of work. That is why they are so easy at giving up. That is why they are so easy at blaming this and blaming that. So one of the biggest challenges of political dialogue in this country has been the poor facilitation of the process. Number two, it has been with the nature of interest of the players. Not all these players are interested in a strong, united opposition per se, but they may be interested in the united, strong opposition depending on how much it can advance their career. So the likes of Dr. Ssemwogerere, who are unfortunately not with us, leaves us in a very difficult situation, because much as we believe in political dialogue, the proponents or the promoters of political dialogue are still scanty, they are still scared, and some of them do not know how to facilitate the process. So I would say that this has been a fundamental problem. Our political parties, because of poor planning and lack of proper facilitation, have always considered political dialogue at the eve of the election. Yet they have to consider so many factors into this meeting, into coming together. So challenges have been that one, we do not have values as a political class. Number two, we have different interests. Number three, the process has not been well facilitated. And number four is that we are not likely, or we are not in position of contributing to one united Uganda. I think the material nature, the material benefits that come from political offices have made political leaders abandon the search for political consensus. So broadly, I would think that those are the key issues that have been affecting our political dialogue as a country and as the opposition.
Thank you so much. Probably Henry, because you weigh in there, because Lubaga, where the residents of the late for the last 4 election cycles has been now, I would call it a political maker for opposition figures who want to take on the highest seat in the land, and the late has always been encouraging them to form a united front, have an opposition that is united. And what are your thoughts? Is this still feasible, even when the late left without seeing it come through?
Thank you very much, Felix. In 2019, I had a discussion with the late Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, and his views were clear. He told me that Ugandans have been ready for a united opposition, fielding a single opposition candidate since 2011. And of course, one of the reasons why the opposition cannot unite, I think I'm going to point out to one of them is the lack of ideological clarity. And the second one is divergence of political objectives. There are members who are in opposition, but their interest is not to capture power. Theirs is to stay in opposition. And therefore, for someone who wants to stay in opposition and use elections as a platform to demonstrate that they exist, there's no way you're going to ask them to step down or support a single candidate. But I think also it's about political maturity, because you see, until everybody is able to see the bigger picture, you're not able to see one giving way. It is impossible for everybody to kick the ball at the same time and the ball goes in. What will most likely happen is that the ball will stumble there and the opponent will take it. But also you need to credit the regime, because the regime has mastered the art of keeping the opposition as disunited as it can get. And therefore, the role there has to be played. So until this has happened, and I don't see it happening, because I think in the run up to the 2021 general elections, I saw that the departed Dr. Ssemwogerere was trying everything possible to see that opposition fields a single candidate. But you can clearly see that the objectives were different. If you listened to Kyagulanyi, you would see that his reasons for standing were different from the reasons that would be projected by General Muntu, different from what General Henry Tumukunde had in mind, different from what Katumba had in mind. And so until there is clarity, and that comes with the political maturity, and unfortunately, for that maturity to happen, there needs to be in place a regime that is able to tolerate and allow political parties to grow and groom leaders without being exposed or predisposed to external disruptions. And so I think we are not about to see that happening in the next election, even when the man has departed. We wait to see what happens after the 2026 elections. Back to you, Felix.
Wow, that's quite interesting. In fact, interestingly, that most of the political icons we have right now, even those probably who are in, some of them who are in NRM, have their roots in DP, either their parents who are staunch DP members, and you see that DP nurtured the leaders, and many of the leaders we have today. Ssemwogerere, the late himself, is a product being nurtured by the late Ben Chwanuka, growing through the ranks, first as an aide, then became a DP publicity secretary between 1962 and 1969, and then later on, in 1980, becomes the DP President General, and until 2005, I think around there, when we now have multi-party politics, that he hands over the baton to the late Savannah, is it? Yeah, I think it's the late Savannah. So, and now where we are now, you are again seeing a very different outfit of DP, but you can see some sense of grooming and handing over the baton. Is this something other political parties can learn from? Because I think there are very few that have been successful to have this baton move from one person to another. Is this kind of culture DP has? How can this now motivate other political parties? And let me start with you, Henry Kasache, on that one. You are muted.
I'm muted, sorry. I think, can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the culture of handing over power is not yet grounded in the Democratic Party, despite the fact that DP has practiced it. We have not seen people committed to this culture. And we would say that the current challenges in the Democratic Party also resolve around leadership. The fact that the party has been embroiled in leadership struggles for the last close to 20 years is a sign that this culture has not yet grounded. The malpractice that takes place within the various processes shows you that we still lack that culture as a country. We want to be pushed all the time. We have not had that. We may use the idea that DP handed over to claim credit, which is due credit because that crop of leaders believed that that was the solution for stability and organizational growth. They believed, and you can look at from the record that they have put in place, if a leader believes in handing over power, if a leader believes that a leadership is like running a relay, where you play your part and hand over to the others, you will see deliberate efforts on the part of those leaders to nurture and groom and prepare future leaders. Now, these are things that Dr. Ssemwogerere practiced when he was President General and when he left the party. Now, over time, across the country, we have not seen such deliberate efforts. And that leaves us with a very difficult question that, yes, we may have the history, we may have the records, which can be said we are so proud of, but to what extent have we nurtured the current crop of leaders to believe in this value beyond using it as a slogan? So I think that is the biggest test we have as a country, that we cannot continuously talk about the values that people like Ssemwogerere believed in. We cannot talk about peaceful handover of power when we do not practice peaceful handover of power. And this is an issue that cuts across all the political parties. The mere fact that the internal processes of a political party are not free and fair demonstrates that the culture has not yet been grounded among many of the current crop of leadership. So it remains a challenge, both at a national level, within the NRM, within the political parties. If you do not see any deliberate efforts of the leaders to prepare and nurture people, to nurture successors, then that shows you that the culture has not yet been embraced by the leaders.
Thank you so much. Someone was reminding me that FDC has also been able to demonstrate handing over power, and then also UPC has demonstrated the handing over power. I don't know about the case of UPC because from Obote to Miria to now the Sun, it's quite interesting. Henry, can you weigh in on that? Especially the element of grooming.
Of course, you bring an interesting thing of UPC. It has always been from Obote to Obote. I mean, what kind of power is that? And for the UPC, you get to see that Dr. Kizza Besigye may not have left. I think he's still there. If he left physically, the spirit is there and haunting them. But when it comes to nurturing leaders, you get to see that most of the political parties we have around have been formulated to serve interests of individuals that founded them, which is why when they cannot start a situation where they nurture leaders and leaders come out to start challenging the powers that be within the political party. The NRM, which prides itself in being a mass party, you would see that if you want to be, dispelled from that party, demonstrate that you have leadership to challenge, the general on top of the tree, and then you will see how you'll be fought, and before you know, you will either resign or go out disgruntled. And therefore, the lack of tolerance to see, young people exercising their powers and what they can be, and the truth must be told, because you see, it is natural that a young and upcoming leader with the potential to take over might sometimes demonstrate that they're more powerful than the principal, and therefore it's upon the principal to be humble and tolerant. But you don't see tolerance going through all the political parties we have around, and therefore, because of that, it remains to be seen how sustainable that is going to be. And of course, let me also say this: as I look on the horizon, it does seem that Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere would learn something from what his predecessor Ben Kawanga went through. Because you would see that he would always avoid pushing the military establishment to the limit, because he had seen what Ben Kawanga had gone through, because he lost his life in there. And of course, kudos to him, because then that has helped him to survive. And one of the the things we always urge politicians is to consider political survival, to consider survival as on the arena as something very important. It's of no consequence for you to come and push the regime and get to be eliminated in no time. So you would think he learned from that, but also the fact that he comes and works with the regimes, because Ben Tuanuka did work with the regimes as well, comes and works with the regime. 1980 comes, works with the regime of NRM. 1986, you get to see that that those he learned from his predecessor Ben Tuanuka. Back to you, Felix.
Thank you. Just a bit of fact here. In fact, what we are still celebrating, and the point I'm emphasizing here is that the late Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, because he believed in nurturing, he is the founder of the Foundation for African Development, a civil service advocacy and capacity organization that molds generation of political practitioners, and many of the politicians have gone through, especially DP politicians have gone through that foundation. That's how much he believed in nurturing leaders. The man, the icon we are celebrating today. Our time is pretty spent. Gives me just one question. It's more about where, now that the icon, the candle has burned out, where does this leave DP? And especially looking at the difficulties DP is in at, because he was that rallying, that emblem, that point of convergence. Where does this leave DP, especially DP without a man like Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere? Let me start with you, Henry Kasache. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. I think what this is that it leaves DP in a soul-searching mode. If the members of the Democratic Party believe and respect Dr. Ssemwogerere, they must begin on a process of searching for the values he lived for in their politics. We must begin seeing people respecting the values Dr. Ssemwogerere stood for in their political practice. It is not enough to talk about truth and justice. It's not enough to talk about Dr. Ssemwogerere anymore. What is important is to walk the talk Dr. Ssemwogerere was talking about. So I think that DP should go into this kind of mode. By and large, their politics in the party has not reflected these values. Much as one of their senior leaders stood for peace and non-violence, there are many in the Democratic Party, perhaps because of generational change and also because of breakdown in political education from FAD and other agencies. Majority of the leaders now do not practice these values. We are seeing a lot of internal rigging in their own internal elections, and we're looking a lot of malicious blackmail propaganda, which is not very good. So I think that the death of Dr. Ssemwogerere should give DP members an opportunity to reflect internally and practice the values Dr. Ssemwogerere stood for.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Where does this leave DP?
Yes, so my namesake just spoke about soul searching, and soul searching it has to be, because you see, if you look around what has happened over the last 37 years, DP has just gone through a 360-degree cycle. Because the cycle starts with the departed Oracle of Democracy joining the broad-based government of the regime headed by Mr. Museveni. And that's where we are now, with Mao joining. So you get to see that they are back right where they started. And therefore, you cannot be, as a party, you cannot be moving in these cycles and expect to challenge for power. So I think there needs to be soul searching. Yeah. It did not work for them in 1986 to work in collaboration with the regime in power. It may not work again now. So I think they need to go through soul searching, and the leadership at the top in DP should be able to give way to new ideas, because you know the generations have changed, interests have changed. The things that made DP, for instance, you mentioned FAD. At the time of my leaving university, FAD was one of the very vibrant organizations, and of course they would hold dialogues and determine the direction of the country. They would challenge policy. They would get into, it acted more as a policy think tank. Can we get there and get to see what kind of DP will be? But also, it was a center for grooming leaders, because the policy analysis that was being done at FAD, and of course the dialogues that they would organize is something that DP is missing. So I think they need to get right back there and get their soul searching right, and then determine where they want to be in a way that is context appropriate and suits the generation of today. Thank you very much, and back to you, Felix. Bye. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Henry. And this brings us to a close. But if I close, there was a comment which I want to read. Can you flash it? Just ending with this one. Esero Abel says that the departed Dr. Paul Kawanga was an icon, was fronted political tolerance over intolerance, and which is now thriving in our body politics because of political immaturity. Well, thank you so much, Esero Abel. And that brings us to a close. We were discussing and celebrating the oracle of Uganda's multi-party politics, Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, and with me I had Enrique Sacha, who is the current executive director of Dialogue and Democracy Training Center, and is also a democracy and governance expert. I also had with me Henry Muguzi, who is the electoral democracy expert and anti-corruption activist, but also the executive director of Alliance for Finance Monitoring, a Pan-African civil society organization that works on money in politics and the official political finance watchdog in Africa. I remain Felix Kafuma, your host. Until next time, same place. Bye-bye. Stay blessed.